Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gyanamurtim Dandvaititam Ragana Sadrisham Tattvamasa Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamatslam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tan Namami. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we, through that grace, go beyond darkness and delusion and realize the truth in this very life. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. Good morning. We are coming to you live from the big island of Hawaii, and we are a little late in starting because the rains have come, seasonal weather, and so you might hear a little background noise if it gets very heavy, falls very heavy, and so the elemental rain might tend to blot out the rain of Dharma and the rain of grace that we try and transmit every Sunday morning on these live streaming satsangs and on our live streaming class Sunday afternoon at 2:30 Pacific Standard Time. And we have just finished our 1 hour meditation, and now we are going to take some questions that have come in, quite a few of them, probably too many to answer in our brief hour here with you, but enough to give you a taste of that satsang that is so famous, and its process of atma-vichara. It is inquiry into the nature of the true self, which is specific and particular to spiritual life alone. You don't find it going on in worldly quarters or even in intellectual sectors. The devotees like to gather together and speak about truth and truth alone. And that is actually the first question. Why do Hindu beliefs consider God's chief principle to be truthfulness? Can one truly attain the supreme goal just through adhering to truth? Well, if you take the words of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa as gospel, as we do when we read the gospel, then yes, the answer is truthfulness is the sadhana of this age, as he used to say. It's the practice by which one can adhere to the Dharma and understand the deeper levels of the wisdom teachings. And I would say even if it's practiced on the merely moral and ethical level, which is very important, that even then a person will be guided towards higher reality. This, as knowledge turns into wisdom and wisdom turns towards truth, or as Sri Krishna puts it in the Gita to his devotee Arjuna, he says, Arjuna, you must know that there is an end to knowledge in truth. So there is a purpose for satsangs like this, and there is a purpose for going to class, the purpose for the transmission of the Dharma, the rain of Dharma that is now in the background. We can see in its liquid form, but in its vibrational form coming from the lips of the teachers, there has to be a culmination of that knowledge and deeper understanding. So however way you cut it, truth on the relative level or truth on the level of practice or sadhana, or ultimate truth, if you can adhere to any three of those levels, one will lead to the other and will reveal the light. And that's the next question. Once you mentioned that we are light, but if we are light, and where there is light there is also darkness, then aren't we just stuck in duality? If we identify ourselves with being light, Don't we just engender or manifest an opposite in our lives? Whether it manifests as a situation or a person? In other words, is it possible to be light without darkness in this world of duality? How can I be one without an opposite? Well, thou art one without a second, according to the Vedantas. That's Brahmadvitiya is the saying in the scriptures. And as recently as 700 AD, which is very recent for the Indian scriptures, we have Shankara talking about the oneness that has no comparison. And it's true, the same with the light that has no darkness. Actually, you almost answered your own question here when you said, is it possible to be light without darkness in this world of duality? Well, if you're aware of duality, then of course you're going to think in terms of twos, like we just chanted this morning at the beginning of Satsang. We recognize that one is the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. That is pleasure and pain, life and death, good and bad, and might as well add in there light and darkness. So that one is beyond dualities, and so you're going to have to take the dual mind and the body with its two nostrils and its two eyes and its two ears and turn it into a single eye and a single ear. That is a one-pointed mind. And as soon as one takes that step and begins to succeed in attaining to equanimity or one-pointedness of mind, then darkness begins to go away. You might have noticed if you sit and engender, as the word you used here, peace inside of yourself. Then all of a sudden darkness is gone. Darkness can't exist in the presence of a sun. So we have to be in the mode of practice around that until it becomes a natural habit. We have to always think in terms of being a sun. And then darkness can never encroach. But as soon as we fall out or give up that practice of being light, then all of a sudden darkness is with us, you see. So it's our choice whether or not we're going to let duality dictate the events of our life and the relationships that we have, or whether we're going to make light the central pole around which everything revolves. There's a beautiful story in the Upanishads where God appears to the gods and goddesses, that is Brahman, the absolute reality, appears to the gods and goddesses as a pillar of light. And Indra, the god of gods, sends the god of fire to go see what's going on. We've heard there's a pillar of light here. We must go and see what's going on. So he sends his underling, the god of fire. And the god of fire approaches this huge pillar of light and asks, "Who are you?" And the pillar of light says, "Who are you?" And said, "I'm the god of fire, I can burn anything." So the pillar of light put down a straw, said, "Burn that." And Agni, the god of fire, ran at the straw and tried to burn it. Couldn't do it, and went away all stultified, see, all flummoxed. Went back to Indra and said, I met this pillar of light and I became powerless. So he sent the god of wind. The god of wind asked the pillar, "Who are you?" And the pillar of light said, "Who are you?" The god of wind said, "I am Vayu, the god of wind. I can blow away anything." So the pillar of light put down a straw, "Blow this away." And Vayu rushed at it with all its force of wind, couldn't even move the straw, and went away disappointed. Went back to the Indra, the Lord of gods, and said, "I don't know." So I was powerless. So Indra himself went there finally, and as soon as he approached the pillar of light, it disappeared, and there was the Divine Mother in its place. And he recognized the Divine Mother, and he said, "Oh, Mother Shakti, great Shakti, who was that pillar of light?" And she said, "That was Brahman. That was the source of all things. That was the source of all the gods and goddesses and all their powers." And so you see no darkness around a pillar of light like that. So we have to make that light, which is the light of conscious awareness, the pillar or the pole star of our life. My teacher used to say that. And so there is that beautiful mantra, Om na tatra suryabhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhante kuto yamagnihi tameva bantamanabhati sarvam tasya basa sarvamidam vibhati. Om shanti 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 hi. Always peace, peace, peace 3 times. And that means that there, in that inmost self of all living beings, the sun doesn't shine. Om na tatra surya bhati. Bhati light, surya sun. Na chandra karakam. Neither does the light of the moon, chandra, shine there inside. Nor the light of stars, nor the light of fire, and not even this mortal flame called prana. That doesn't even shine there. All these lights are nothing amidst the light of pure conscious awareness. So there's a darkness in all those things, you see, and there's a darkness in our mind as long as we choose to remain dual in our thinking process. Finite instead of infinite. Sinful instead of perfect. So there's a brief answer to your question about being light. That is simply the fact of the matter that consciousness shines with its own light. In fact, there's the Vedantic metaphor, see, that the sun shines with its own light, but the moon borrows light from the sun. So the moon is rather like our minds in darkness, sometimes called tamas, and in sattva, in light, other times. So balance. So it goes back and forth from slothful to balance, and it moves back and forth between those 2 extremes through restlessness. It wanders away from positivity to negativity, and then wants to get back to positivity. And those 3 modes of nature are going on all the time. And so to master the mind, then one is going to need to transcend all 3 gunas. So you get beyond such things as dualities, twos. And usually you can use triputis, triple teachings, to do it. And that will bring you to the sense of oneness. From twos to threes to ones, if you want to put it that way, to the only one there is, the light of consciousness. So that is an answer to the question about being light. You must meditate as if you were a sun. There's a sun in the nocturnal skies now that they say takes 11 centuries to fly around in a jet. 11 centuries to fly around this sun in a jet. That's one of the recent discoveries in space. That's a vast, enormous, humongous ball of light there you're talking about. So, but that light is nothing. The light of 1,000,000 suns is nothing compared to the light of consciousness, which is you. All of these suns came out of you. There might as well be your thoughts. So, power that magnificent out in space tends to make a spectacle, tends to attract people, and they get hypnotized by nature. But then in their hypnotism, they forget that all of the light comes out of this light of consciousness, pure conscious awareness, Chaitanya, Jyoti. And in fact, in yoga, there are some 4 steps of mastery. Ritambara pragya, atikranta bhavaniya. Finally you get to Jyoti. And when you arrive there, it's the light of yogic mastery. You become the ocean of light. A sorrowless ocean of light, Patanjali calls it. So that exists, and the seers go there for their bath every day. As long as they're embodied, they will go there for their ablution every morning. See, and check in with that light of consciousness and say, I am that light. I am. then when they go into life, they take that light with them, and that's why they can inspire us and remove our darkness. So all of these things to convince us about the importance and the nature of consciousness being jyoti, light. Sometimes you could describe it as shabda, sound, depending on whether it's a mystic temperament you're talking about or a visionary temperament you're talking about. Yes, so I'm competing against the rain here, so you know, and I'm speaking as loud as I can. I hope you can all hear me. This next question comes in. I am at a job where I must deal with people who lie and make things up for their own benefit, usually causing undue stress upon the truthful workers who are trying to perform good works. I don't want to stoop to their low level since I am too mature for that. How should I treat these colleagues, and what mental posture should I assume to forbear this situation? Well, obviously, as a devotee of the Lord and a sensitive person, you're already assuming the right mental posture. Just keep doing it. Don't doubt yourself, and probably don't ask the question. Just either remove yourself from that workplace and find a better workplace if you want to go the extreme way, or forbear. There are two choices right there. And if you have to forbear and stay amidst people like that, then you must be indifferent to them. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, be reverent of all the seers. Number one, be happy for those who are successful. Number two, be compassionate for those who suffer. Number three, and be indifferent to those who are evil-minded. Because they all have the Atman in them, so it's really not such a matter of trying to rid the world of evil. That will never happen. It's more a matter of this is your chance to practice forbearance amidst such situations. So go ahead and identify with those co-workers who are dharmic and be indifferent to those who are evil. Their karma is coming to them due to their own actions, and they will have to deal with it. But your karma is coming to you due to your dharmic actions. So it's just a matter of practicality, really. It's a question often asked, but in this day and age where the workplace is based more and more on money and greed and power, not that it wasn't there in olden times, but we see it more because of the media and because of the population increase. So it just becomes more obvious to us. And to the devotees of the Lord, or to the aspirants after truth, it becomes more necessary for them to practice detachment. And detachment will eventually lead to renunciation of all works. You know how Swami Vivekananda puts it, and how Sri Krishna puts it in the Gita, is that all works are for nothing other than for the gathering of knowledge. And when the gathering of knowledge happens, you will transcend the burning midday sun of duty, which is burning the vitals of humanity all the time. So work with detachment, gather the knowledge, the essence that comes from such experiences, and remember that those experiences are heightened by evil people, the presence of evil people. That will make you a yogi or a yogini of great prowess, that you can stand in front of even the darkest of beings and maintain your position as a dharmic being. That will be a great lesson to both sides, light and darkness. See how these two last questions are related? To be the light or to let the darkness in? Well, here it's happening in the very workplace called karma yoga. So that's your opportunity. Question about qualification. Can one be a knower of Brahman in the sense of being a qualified spiritual teacher without having obtained nirvikalpa samadhi. What is the lowest samadhi one must attain to be a knower of Brahman? Well, it's a little bit too figured here, a little bit too calculating. Really what you need to do is stamp out ignorance in your mind. Who knows when lower samadhis attend upon you? Quite often lower samadhis or wisdom samadhis are merely just the presence of being able to talk about God, but Vivekananda says that most of us can talk very well about God if we sit down and speak with our brethren, with our friends, with people who are open-minded. We can all talk very well about God, thank you very much, but very few of us have actually realized God. That's where we separate the wheat from the chaff. And so in that regard, this question comes up about being a qualified spiritual teacher. I think probably be better put just to qualify yourself as an aspirant. And if you can qualify yourself as an aspirant, then these samadhis will come naturally, and you probably won't even know that they're upon you. Sri Ramakrishna was childlike in his samadhis, and he often said he felt just like Mother was taking him from one room of samadhi to another room of samadhi, and he was just following along like a child. So it's really the absence of the thought, I am a spiritual teacher, or even my knowledge or my wisdom, that puts one in the state of a Paramahamsa like that. So I can see where the question's coming from. We would like to be able to measure how far we've come. But remember, Holy Mother said, it's vanity to measure your own spiritual progress. You should just do the practice and let it dawn upon you and let it mature by stages. Enlightenment dawns on the mind by stages. So, if you're talking about a knower of Brahman, that's a very, very rare stage. Very rare stage. That's Brahmadvitiye, we said, one without a second. That's a very rare stage to attain. So most people, even when they attain it, they have to come down from that high platform of consciousness to be put on the robe of a teacher, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, and be able to share what they know. You see. So there are stages of consciousness that the mind will visit, but they're a matter of natural happening, natural occurrence. One should just do the practice and let them occur spontaneously. Now, this other question next is very related, so I might as well take it at the same time. What is the lowest chakra that Kundalini must rise to in order to become a knower of Brahman? Well, now we get to another measuring stick, you see. We're trying to measure our progress again, but in this question maybe comes a little bit more measurable. That is, basically this heart chakra is where beings are setting their sights on. The lower three chakras, Sri Ramakrishna said, are like eating, drinking, and sex life. The three things that people are engaged in all the time. They can engage in them very grossly, very basely, or they can engage with them very conventionally, just sort of like, that's the only thing I am, is just an animal. I eat and drink and have relations. Or they can begin to refine the process and sublimate the energy, and that's what the questioner is talking about here. Kundalini Shakti then begins to make her appearance as light in that person, and the darkness begins to get shorn away from that person, and the light begins to raise, and it even comes out the pores as ojas and tejas. These are principles of Kundalini Yoga. That's why we see a light coming out of beings like that. In the past they saw light coming off of Buddha and Christ and Krishna and so forth. So, more specifically to the question then, the heart chakra beyond eating, drinking, and sex life, or eating, drinking, and sex life refined and taken up, and the essence taken out of them and the poison destroyed, then soul arrives at living in the heart. You see, it's a matter of faith, it's a matter of devotion, it's a matter of compassion, it's a matter of love. So when you see those four qualities in a person, then you know that Kundalini Shakti has risen to that fourth chakra, and ignorance is swiftly on the wane. You see, it's not this kind of wane. You see, it's waning very hard right now, so I'm having to shout out these teachings. Maybe it's good practice for me. So, but the waning of darkness, the waning of ignorance, is then in process. So at that time, then you could say, at the heart chakra, Kundalini has risen and ignorance is going away, and that is the lowest chakra that this knower of Brahman can inhabit. You see, Sri Ramakrishna actually used to say that most people try and raise their Kundalini up, you see, up the spine not being just a physical spine, but allocated with 7 centers that are adjacent to the spine in a different atmosphere, in a different level of consciousness, not the physical. Physical is just a representation of it. Having said that, then, if Sri Ramakrishna used to say most people are trying to raise their Kundalini Shakti up, but the avatars, the great souls, come from the crown chakra down. And when we say up and down, we really mean in and out. See, the kingdoms of heaven within, and this world's without. So he said, when I visited the human frame, took on a body, then I could only come down this far, to the heart. And he said, this is the drawing room of God, where I can talk to the devotees. But if I start to go up, I start to speak truth, I start to realize truth, and my ego goes away, and I can't speak to anyone anymore. And I visit the crown chakra, and I'm gone, utterly gone. And so is my ignorance, and so is darkness, and so is the thought, I am a knower of Brahman. They're all gone. Even the ego at the most refined level goes away, you see. So that's a good question to take in the context of the rest of these questions, that this heart chakra is the place to aim for. And in meditation practice too, it's the place to aim for and remain at. That is, consciousness may visit higher centers, but it cannot do so unless there's been a platform built here at the heart, so that when it comes down, when a bird comes down from the skies and has to rest on a branch, Sri Ramakrishna said metaphorically, that it rests on the branch of the heart and it doesn't fall any further. Because he used to make the observation that people would dance and sing, you see kirtan and all that happy stuff. We saw a horrible example of that even in the Grammys recently, you see. So when Kundalini comes down, and if it, after you dance and sing and so forth, then if it doesn't have a platform at the heart to remain at, to keep itself noble, high-minded, uncompromised, then it will fall to these 3 lower centers and people commit all sorts of heinous acts. That's how Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa put it. So, very important to build a platform there, and then let the consciousness go inward as it may, spontaneously, without needing to control it, and let it return to that heart chakra. This is your home. The home is in the heart. It's the safest place, it's the best place, and it's where the light of consciousness and the sound of Om emits from. Now, remaining few minutes, what is entailed in keeping up a healthy relationship with Ishvara? It's very beautiful that people are even thinking in terms of Ishvara. It's also rather ironic, because there are so many people whose only path is Ishvara, and they have no thought whatsoever about the Almighty Father. You see, it's all Jesus, nothing about the Almighty Father. In the West, I'm talking about in Christianity particularly. But the experiences of the seers and saints of the East, especially particularly of India, is that, and Christ had it right when he said, you get to the Father through the Son. So Ishvara is a very high, that is very deep and noble position that consciousness holds. And when you visit that station of consciousness, you will bow your head before the Christ, before the Buddha, before Muhammad, depending on whether you're a Christian, a Buddhist, or a Muslim, and so forth. So that Ishvara is many-faced. You see, that's really one of the meanings behind the fact that Ishvara has 4 faces or many faces, facing in all directions, because people are coming to God from different directions, you see. Some are coming from east, some are coming from west, some are coming from Christianity, some are coming from India. So Ishvara has to be all things to all beings. So that's how you keep up the best relationship with Ishvara, by keeping it universal. It's not narrow. As soon as you become hypocritical and try and say, my watch keeps the only right time, then you have done a grave injustice to Ishvara, to Christ, to Buddha, to Krishna, to Ramakrishna. So you must be careful of that tendency in the human mind to become narrow or hypocritical. Then you must also know that Ishvara is trying to introduce you to the formless Brahman. That is, Jesus wants you to know the Almighty Father. Be like thy Father in heaven is perfect. Because birds have nests, foxes have holes, but Son of Man has no place to lay his head here on earth. So Ishvara comes, takes a body on earth, shows you the way as an exemplar. That is, not just as a savior, but more importantly as an exemplar. And then ushers you into the presence of the formless Brahman. And so that is getting to the Father through the Son. And so that's why I say it's rather ironic that those people who do believe in Ishvara, that is a chosen ideal, a savior figure, are not using that savior figure to reach the highest state of realization. They're staying at a penultimate state. So we have to know what the purpose for Ishvara is, and that would be having the best relationship with Ishvara, is to use Ishvara in the best way, in the highest way, in the way it's meant to be used. Ishvara is also Ishvari, I should mention, because in this ashram, Divine Mother is our ideal, the Wisdom Mother, the one who appeared and explained the pillar of light in that story I was just relating. So appears there and says that light was Brahman. That's Ishvara. She's ushering you through the lower climes of consciousness to the higher climes of consciousness, which are like kingdoms of heaven within you, divine atmospheres, and then you will have the vision of the ocean of light. As we just said in all these questions, darkness goes away about that time, and you begin to realize yourself as being all light, leaping through the nerves, as Sri Aurobindo has said in his great poem, Savitri. So, very important to know that God is with form, God is beyond form, and God is beyond both form and formlessness too. That's a triple teaching that one can entertain in the mind as a principle of knowledge that you get in satsang from a teacher who can relate that to you. And now, before the rain washes this away completely, and hopefully the Dharma rain has reached your ears over the cacophony of this cloudburst, then we will bring our morning satsang to a close at about 5 minutes early, because it looks like we're going to have to call on Noah pretty soon here to help us. So please join us for this afternoon's live streaming class for more of this kind of satsang wisdom, which I say is particular to spiritual seekers. Sometimes you don't even find it in conventional religious settings, but spiritual seekers like to hear shruti, yukti, reason, and nididhyasana, meditate upon this higher wisdom, so that they can be ushered to the highest and deepest level of realization called enlightenment, moksha or mukti. So we will take the rest of the questions next Sunday at our once-a-week live streaming satsang. I hope you'll join us then. Om, peace, peace, peace.